everybody, welcome back to the channel, and I have my April reading review rankings. So I was able to read 7 books in the month of April, which is a lot for me. Well, more than normal. I try to target 5. And again, I would love to get faster in reading, and if you have some tips or tricks for how to speed up reading, I would love to know that, just on a very pragmatic level. But just for me, 5 is what I try to target, and 7 is what I reached this month, and that's because I read 2 books at the end of the month that were shorter, and they just happen to be my 2 favorite books this past month. So maybe that's how you read faster. You love the books that you read. But again, I read 7 books, and let's start with my least favorite, and we'll go up to my favorite. So number 7 was R.F. Kuang's The Poppy War. Now, you may have loved this book, and respect to you if you did. But I sort of describe The Poppy War as Harry Potter meets Mulan meets the patriarchy. And R.F. Kuang definitely had an agenda that she was writing, and the main character, Rin, scores highest in her region on a national placement test that acquires her position as a student in a very prestigious military school. She must overcome and adjust to a ton of prejudice and a bunch of just character assassination at every turn. And when war breaks out, she is enlisted in a special forces unit because of the magic that she has within her that she learns more about as the story progresses. But as she learns more about her own abilities and power, as she sort of gets to follow her commander, who she knew in school, as they sort of develop their bond, she must decide if she is going to use her newfound power to build back the world or to destroy her enemies in much the same way that they would have used similar power to destroy her. And why I so dislike this book is, spoiler warning, she chooses to destroy. And there isn't seemingly any retribution, any consequences for her action. I read this whole book thinking how they are so terrible and we are so wronged. But then when Rin is given the choice to do the exact same thing to her enemies, she does, and she doesn't even hesitate. So I rated this 1 out of 5. I just really disagreed with pretty much every moral, every societal implication of this book. I did not enjoy it, but you may have. This, to me, was my least favorite book. Number 7, The Poppy War. Number 6 is definitely, we are now into books that I enjoyed. Certainly parts of them. Number 6 is a Star Wars book entitled Fatal Alliance. I rated this 3 out of 5. And for me, 3 is not an insult. 3 out of 5, when I'm reading a book, if I think it accomplished what the author wanted to do, if it really checked all of the boxes for what the book was supposed to be, to me, earned a 3. If there's things that I didn't like about it, it's going to trickle down into the 2s. If there were things that I thought it excelled in, it's going to be 4s. Obviously, the best of the best is going to be 5. So for me, you kind of have to pull me out of a 3, and you have to pull me down from a 3. This, the Star Wars Fatal Alliance, very much a 3 out of 5. What's the big crisis in this story? There are these cyborgs of death that essentially are loosed on the galaxy, and our main characters, which is sort of this motley crew assembled loosely, have to try to figure out how to identify these robots kind of things and then defeat them. There's a rogue Empire scientist who just wants to protect her daughter, and to me that was kind of the weirdest part of this book. And if you read it, there's this element of ooze in the story, and when I got to it, I was kind of like, that is disgusting. Could have done without that. There's a Sith Master, the Jedi Grandmaster, Satele Shan, and their 2 apprentices were some of my favorite parts of this book because they actually have to work together, hence the Fatal Alliance, in order to fight this sort of common threat. And so seeing Sith agents, Empire soldiers go into battle with the Jedi, with the Republic. To me, that was super cool. And there are two characters that I kind of really enjoyed reading about. One was her name is Laren Moxla. She's sort of a disgraced Republic Special Forces soldier, and to see her redemption arc. And then there's an Imperial double agent. His name was, oh boy, what was his name? VE was his last name. VE was his last name. And he sort of loves the idea of structure, of control that the Empire has, because he thinks that's the quickest way to help people. If there's one person at the top, they can do what's right, and we don't have to go through all this sort of bureaucracy. But the more that Agent VE learns about the Empire, the more he is very much having to shift his opinions. I thought that was super cool. 3 out of 5, my 6th favorite book this month, Star Wars Fatal Alliance. Number 5 was book 2 of the Red Rising trilogy, entitled Golden Sun. I rated this 3 out of 5. I may have gone lower if it weren't for like the last 50 pages. The last 50 pages of this book really were some of the best that I read all month. We come back to Darrow, the sons of Ares, and their continued long-planned term to destroy the society, to overthrow the Golds, and raise the Reds and everyone else out of this sort of caste system of colors. Darrow in this book is betrayed, supported, betrayed again, and then ultimately supported, but not before he's betrayed again. And so Mustang and Severo, I thought, were our return characters that had the most development in this. And yeah, like I mentioned, the last 50 pages were amazing. I probably would not have continued on if this was just, if the whole thing was like what I thought the whole book was, which I didn't really enjoy. It was a lot of kind of just the same stuff, and Darrow just being really, really angry and really, really arrogant, and then getting beat up, and then being really, really angry and really, really arrogant again. The last 50 pages, to me, I think I am going to finish the series now. 3 out of 5. It would have been lower, but the last 50 to me pulled this up to a 3, saved that 3 for me. So my 5th book is Pierce Brown's Golden Sun. You may be watching this point and thinking I have lost my ever-loving mind. You may be right. 4th book this month that I enjoyed was The Rune Lords. This is a less well-known series. David Farland, his Star Wars pen name is David Wolverton. That's his real name. He chose a pen name David Farland because he wanted a name that sounded more fantasy-esque, and I guess Farland sounded more fantasy-esque. And also he wanted a last name that would put his books right in front of your vision. If you're looking at the shelves on a bookstore, like F is sort of towards the top where eye level would be. So hysterical choice there. But what is the Rune Lords? This is a long series, and book 1 is there are magical bracers that Rune Lords use to take people's abilities, like their sight, their strength, their memory, their hearing, and other elements of them as well. And Raj Atten, our villain, he has sold his soul to conquering the world. And because he has taken thousands upon thousands of endowments, which is when you take people's abilities, he only has a few years before he is going to die because he has so sped up his aging process. However, if he can conquer the world, if he can take enough endowments, he actually is going to reach this state of immortality, which is called the sum of all men, like the additional sum of all men. And I think that's a really cool description of what he's trying to do, which is add to himself the endowments of all men. There are 2 kingdoms, really 2 kings that are standing in his way. One of them has a rough go at it the whole book. The other is in a better place, but still isolated. Our 2 really focused characters is the princess and the prince of our 2 kingdoms. And they were going to be married, but when Raj Atten invades, they sort of have to put that on hold, obviously. But through their journey to support their fathers in their own unique ways, they sort of develop a love and a trust that was fun to read. This book, honestly, I put it at number 4, and I rated it 3 out of 5 because it is just that for me. It's just a 3. There wasn't things that I really didn't like, but there was really nothing in this book that I thought, wow, that is. So very much a 3 out of 5. Rune Lords, the 4th book that I enjoyed reading this month. Number 3, back to another Star Wars book. This is probably my favorite Star Wars. What I'm doing, I'm reading through the Star Wars Expanded Universe. There's like 140 books, and I'm reading through them in order. So this is book 7 out of 140 whatever. So this is actually the favorite one that I've read so far. In Star Wars Annihilation, there's a secret son of Jedi Grandmaster Satele Shan, and she had him when she was younger, obviously, and gave him up because she knew that in her position, she could have been manipulated by the dark side, by any enemy of the Jedi or the Republic. And so she allows another Jedi Master to raise him in secret. And his name is Theron. Well, now that he's grown up, Theron has a lot of his mother in him and a lot of his father that we get to know throughout this story. And this sort of family dynamic is explored in a very non-normal family. I loved kind of seeing Theron. He wasn't whiny. He wasn't like, woe is me because mom and dad have put me into this horrible thing. He just sort of did the right thing. And I really enjoyed. There's a couple characters here that I thought were special, but the big bad in this book is interesting because there's this like super ship, this super starship that the Empire has created, and Sith Master Darth Carrick, Carrick, I believe is her last name, Carid, she can actually connect to the ship through the Force, through actual biology and plugging implants into her body to where she can use the Force to control the ship, and it is wreaking havoc on the Republic. So Theron is essentially hired, he is enlisted by the Republic to form a team to stow away aboard the ship and take it down from the inside. And it was a fun adventure. 4 out of 5 for me for this one. Drew Karpyshyn did a great job in this book. I really would encourage you to check this one out. They're fun, sort of at this point. They are loosely connected, but it's a fun standalone. So if you're like, I don't think I've read Star Wars, this is a fun one to start with, I think. You may enjoy it. Let me know if you do. All right, the last 2, and again, I was only supposed to read 5 books, so those 5 were the ones that I had scheduled for this month. And I had some extra time at the end, and I found 2 books that I really had on my Goodreads TBR. And you can check out my Goodreads. It's linked on in the description of my YouTube channel. Book number 2 is a cozy fantasy that I've wanted to read for a while now, and it is Legends and Lattes. As someone who would love to open up my own coffee shop, bookstore type feel one day, man, this book was like speaking into existence everything that I've like imagined. Viv is a retired orc who wants to get away from the killing and the destruction. She finds this sort of magical stone that is supposed to give good luck. And so she cuts her losses and hangs up the sword, literally, moves to the city of Thum, and she, with money that she saved up from various escapades, purchases an old abandoned shop and begins her dream of opening a coffee shop. Now, no one knows what coffee is in this world because it's contextually, it is this far off drink from this distant land that she was at some battle. And so she has to sort of overcome that hurdle of explaining coffee to people that have never had coffee, but then really just go through all of the stuff that anyone would go through who's opening up a new store for the first time. How are we going to market this? What's the menu going to be? How are we going to lay out the store? I mean, like, this is actually talked about and is part of this fantasy story. It was so fun. And Travis Baldree, he was an audiobook narrator for hundreds of books and self-published this as his first novel. It goes crazy with sales, and Tor bought it for America, and there's a couple others that have bought rights to it in other countries. And I mean, it went to the top of the New York Times bestseller. So he read enough and he said, you know, I think I'm going to give it a go. He crushed it. There's 2 other books specifically that are immediately connected to this, and then there's a couple like novellas that are part of this as well. So Legends and Lattes, Travis Baldree, my second favorite book, 4 out of 5 for me. There's a few things that kind of kept this from being a 5, and you can go view that video as well. I did a full review of it there, but 4 out of 5, second book. I'm so glad I got to this month. But then we come to my favorite one, and this is, again, a breakout novel by author Charlie N. Holmberg, and it is entitled The Paper Magician. Our main character is Sione, and she finished first in her class in magic school, and she graduated in 1 year, so a very gifted and dedicated student. That should have meant that finishing first, she could have chosen the magic that she was going to bond to. And the magics that you're allowed to bond are anything that are man-made. So things like metal, things like glass, things like plastic. But because so many former students have not chosen the least desired magic, they now have to begin assigning people to make sure that there's enough magicians moving forward. So she gets assigned to paper. And boy, is she disappointed, because how lame is, who can do anything with paper? Well, her utter disappointment is somewhat forgotten as she gets to know her new magician master, Emery Thane, who is dashing and charming and whimsical and a little standoffish at the same time. So there's an element of mystery. And the more she gets to learn how paper is used magically, she kind of begins to enjoy it. Well, the big bad in this is an evil flesh magician, because they've discovered and thought through the fact that, well, humans are created by man. So can we control humans? And yes, there is a dark flesh magic. And this flesh magician has a past with Emery and attacks him. So Sione must use her wits and her basic knowledge of magic, specifically paper magic, and go on an adventure to save his very life. This was a 5 out of 5. It's the first 5 out of 5 that I've had on this channel since I've been doing this a little bit more officially, and I loved The Paper Magician. There are, I think, 4 total books now officially there's 3 in the series, and 1 I think is a standalone. So I'm so excited to get to reading the next book in this series. But yes, this was the top book that I read this month, Charlie Holmberg's The Paper Magician. But that's what I read, so 7 books this month. What did you read? Let me know. And have you read any of my books that I read? What did you think of them? Which out of mine do you think you would have enjoyed the most? Let me know, or whatever you want to share with me in the comments. And I've got a full lineup for next month as well, so we'll get to that in another video. But thanks so much for watching. If you're interested, you can like and subscribe, and we will continue reading and enjoying these adventures together. So we'll see you on the next video, but until then, take care.